everyone, it's Sam Vokes at Wycombe Wanderers, and you're listening to the Wycombe Wanderers Show.
Welcome to a very special Wycombe Wanderers show this week. The reason being is
Adebayo Akinfenwa's special game coming up this Saturday against Doncaster Rovers. It's not a testimonial, it's not his last game, but I think the club have very cleverly selected this game as a good opportunity to pay tribute to a Wycombe Wanderers legend.
Coming up in the next hour, we'll get the thoughts of manager Gareth Ainsworth. We'll also hear from the man himself. Big thanks to Matt at the club, because you've been to the training ground.
I have indeed. Yes, thank you very much to Matt for hosting Wycombe Sound this afternoon. Yes, I managed to speak to not only Bayo, but also got the thoughts of Joe Jacobson, of Pete Couhig, and also of Matt Cecil himself, who has quite a good story about what he initially thought when he heard that Bayo was coming to the club.
Coming up a bit later on, we'll hear from a couple of members of Space Elevator in a sort of rock and roll part of the show. And
things you didn't expect Colin to be saying.
All will become clear a bit later on. And we'll catch up with JDT to find out the latest comings and goings at the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association as well. Comings and goings, that sounds like they made some signings, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Well, perhaps they have.
I'm looking forward to hearing their comings and goings.
A couple of former ex-players coming up by the end of the season.
And I want to know, has Bayo been signed up by the Ex-Players Association already?
We can certainly find out that this hour.
Do they ever play actual games against other teams' ex-players associations?
I think they do have games, yeah.
Do they? Yeah.
We were talking to...
goodness me, you'd want Bayo on your side, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
He'd be a bit of an intimidating one to be coming up against.
Absolutely.
As Joe Jacobson talks about in a couple of minutes, actually.
Yeah, so before that, let's sort of reflect on what has been a monumental career for literally such a big character.
Just amazing. And when he came, he was obviously really, really well known. And it was wonderful that Wycombe Wanderers were able to sign someone who was a star, and it's not something that happens very often. But the fact that he's actually become such a Wycombe Wanderers legend over the past 6 years, it is just testament to what a fantastic guy he is, and how he clearly cares so much actually about the club. And very much puts the club before anything to do with Adebayo Akinfenwa. And I think those are all things that actually, when we initially signed him, some fans might have thought, that it doesn't sound like a very Wycombe signing. But actually, he's just been wonderful, both on and off the pitch.
And you've been speaking to the current captain to get his thoughts.
I have indeed. So I asked Joe Jacobson what he first of all thought when he heard that we'd signed Adebayo Akinfenwa.
I'm glad he's on my team and not against me, I think. I had some battles with him over the years. A funny one comes to mind, but I was at Shrewsbury and he was at Northampton, and we beat them 7-2. We both actually scored in the game, but I remember going through quite hard on a tackle on him and I got booked. And I remember him saying to their goalie, their defenders, just put it on that Jacobson's head, put it on his head. And I was thinking, oh no, here we go. And battles against Gillingham, and he was such a handful that... it was something that he's kind of one of a kind in the Football League, so to have him on your team is a big asset. And at the time I didn't realise how good he was. At the time you think he's just a big man just in for the air, but getting to know him, playing with him, turns out that he's got a lot more going on than just pinning people and flicking the ball on. So it's worked out amazingly for Wycombe.
I think that's the thing that actually we all realise when we see him week in, week out, is actually he's a brilliant footballer.
Yeah, and that you shouldn't have to say, I know it's the old football cliche, isn't it, like good feet for a big man. You shouldn't have to say that. We're all professional footballers here. Bayo wouldn't be a professional footballer if he couldn't play football, wasn't good at playing football. And I've learned over the years what his strengths are, and I think the first season he came in and scored all those goals, and the first few years have made my game so much easier, because I knew if I was in trouble I could hit diags onto Bayo, I could cross the ball and Bayo would get on the end of it. And I think we can combine for 5 or 6 goals within a short space of time in that first or second season, and it was a joy for me to play with, for sure.
I mean, he has just been a fantastic ambassador as well for the club, and he's one of those generals alongside yourself and so many of the other players that actually we just rely on, I think, 100%. You know that you're going to be there, and you know that you're going to basically bleed the light and dark blue for Wycombe Wanderers.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, just being a person off the pitch in the change room is so important. The young lads look up to him. It's amazing the amount of people that come into the club on boys on trial, young lads, new signings, and they always ask, what's he like? What's a big man like? And you hear him before you see him normally coming into the building, and that presence he's got. He demands that kind of respect on the training pitch. He's the first one to shout in training if things aren't going well. If players are not quite on it, he'll be making sure that everyone's being really professional professional and been really on it. And that's a credit to himself. The way he's coming up to 40 years old, so to still be playing. I know he's probably can't move as well as he did a few years ago, but to still be a professional athlete at that age and to do it professionally for over 20 years is a credit to himself. But spending time with him off the pitch, like you said, in generals meetings and things like that, and discussing how we want the club to be run, and he really cares about the club. He really cares about the young players. He really cares about the culture, and he created this thing. I don't know, you've probably heard it, called Price Check. He goes on about it in a lot of the stuff he does, where just to keep players kind of their feet on the ground and humble. He makes sure that the clothes they wear in can't go over a certain amount, and if players wear clothes that are excessive of this, he finds them, and he makes sure people come in. It's funny because some people will have an expensive tracksuit on, but they'll make sure they come in flip-flops because they can't afford the trainers they're coming in with. So just little things like that he's kind of implemented in the club. And you speak to Matt Cecil, who runs the social media. I think before Bayo came, there's probably only a few thousand followers for Wycombe, and as soon as he turns up, there's the media side of the pull that he has around the globe, not just in England, is huge, and the club have benefited from that as well.
Do you get a fine if you don't wear the beast mode hoodie?
No, I have. You see, players do wear it in. I've got one at home. I don't tend to wear it out. I do more when I'm doing the gardening or something like that. Don't tell them I said that. But no, like things like little things like that with the stuff going on. We're all very happy to promote it and help him out with it. And if he wants pictures with us wearing it, things like that, we're all happy to do it. There's so many things that he's done for me personally off the pitch. I was a little thing. I am a big cricket fan, and I think the Ashes were on a couple of years ago, and we were talking about it in house with a few of the boys who enjoy the cricket, and Bayo got involved, and we were talking about Jofra Archer, and we were saying how he was the menace against Australia and things like that on the World Cup, I think it was, and Bayo was like joking around saying, yeah, I know him, or whatever it was. All of a sudden, a month later, I get a message off Bayo, and there's a video of Jofra Archer saying, hi JJ, how you doing? And Bayo was like, I told you I'd get a video for you. So just little things like that. He does care, and he does take note of little things like that, and he goes out of his way to help others when he doesn't need to, so he's great.
I think we've probably all got a couple of sort of like memories of Bayo that definitely are there in the memory bank. But what are yours? What when you look back on his Wycombe career, what are the things that you remember?
Little things like the amount of last minute goals and things like that he's been not necessarily scored but been a part of. I think Matt put a thing up, I think it's probably last season actually, where we scored like 10 or 12 last minute winners at Adams Park in the last few years, all kind of probably since he's been at the club, and he's always been a part of that. And just the amount of pictures I see on the pitch of, you could take a still of Bayo, the ball's going in the air, there's 5 players around him, and he comes out with the ball, and he not just wins the ball or gets, but he makes use of the ball as well. And there's so many times, like we've played together for 5 or 6 years now, and like I said, with me, he made so much easier for me just crossing the ball into an area. So it's hard to pick one kind of big moment. I remember I think it was the Spurs game, the first Spurs game away, when he played, and I think I remember one of their players just on the pitch being like someone said about win the header, and they were like, what can I do? And this is Premier League players at Tottenham Champions League team at the time, so it doesn't matter who you are.
And we were League Two as well. You have to remember
exactly, and it's funny because you see defenders, it seems to be the bigger they are, the more they want to try and fight with him and try and beat him and show how powerful and strong they are, but no one ever wins apart from Bayo. So I think just seeing that, and then off the pitch, just he may turn up late most days for training, but that's what he needs to do. And just hearing him come in, and as soon as he walks in, there's a different aura about the place. He livens things up. He makes sure he's got different handshakes with every player, and makes everyone feel really welcome. He doesn't treat the older players differently to the younger boys and things like that. So around the place, he's going to be missed for sure when he stops playing.
Great to hear from Joe Jacobson, and we'll be catching up with Matt Cecil in a few moments' time as well to find out his impact on the media side. But Bob also spoke to the man himself.
Take us back then to 2016, and you've just got AFC Wimbledon up. What then happens after that?
Okay, after the come down of knowing what we achieved, and then knowing that, listen, I didn't have a club. Of course, it's well documented now, the the after-game speech I gave, and then the influx of attention from all over the world, Gaffer got at me. Listen, I knew Gaffer. I knew Gaffer from playing against him, and I knew about him. And then I remember I sat down with my agent as well, and I said I didn't want to go too far. I was 34, and I didn't think I'd still be playing at 40, so I didn't want to move the family anywhere. And it was like, look, I want to try and stay as local to London as possible. So we whittled it down, and we sat down with Gaffer and Andrew Howard at the time. And listen, after the first conversation with Gaffer, I knew this is where I wanted to sign. And listen, of course, it's easy to say the rest is history, but the rest is history.
The rest very much is history. And I mean, you came here as a legend and you're leaving as a Wycombe Wanderers legend.
I don't know about them words there. I remember, it's a funny thing is for me, I remember still having something to prove to myself. It was to nobody else. I remember I didn't play as much at the back end of that season, and I had something to prove to myself to say, nah man, like, go out on your terms. So like I said, I didn't plan to play to 40, and I would be lying if I said I did, but I knew that there was still life left in me. So when I came here, and of course, people were talking about, listen, is it just a publicity? He's 34, and are we talking more about his social media presence than the actual footballer? But for myself, listen, I knew that I wanted to prove to myself I could still go out on my terms. And yeah, man, I'll always say everything happens for a reason. And look, 6 years later, this was 100% the best decision I've made.
How are you still playing at 40 years old?
Oh man, ask God, I don't even know. No man, listen, the reason I'm playing, because I think in life timing is everything, and I think I linked up with Gaffer, I linked up with a set of fans, and I linked up with players that bought into what Gaffer was trying to achieve and bought into who I was as a person on and off the pitch. And I keep saying, anybody that's had success anywhere, for them to say they did it alone is a lie. And for the success I've had here, I didn't do it alone. So the reason I'm still playing at 40 is because of who I had around me, and I can't speak highly enough of it, in the sense of people turn around and say, yes, I'm happy what I did individually, but what we did collectively, outweighs what any individual accolade I can take for myself. And that's the reason why, I'm joyful at looking back at like my time here and of course my career.
Looking to Saturday then against Doncaster, obviously we're paying tribute to you, but also as well, it's an important game for Wycombe Wanderers. Yeah,
listen, I'm going to lie. I will acknowledge the build up. I'll acknowledge the accolades. I'll acknowledge the attention before kick-off. But then when kick-off comes, it's work. Like, we got 7 games. So part of me, I'll turn around and say, look, well, let's celebrate when we get to Wembley. I'm trying to just put that out there, trying to manifest that as much as possible. But work first. I'll always say this, and it's important for us to go and get 3 points. We ain't played in a little while, and it's important to continue this run that we're on. So there's work to be done. I'll acknowledge it, trust me, because I do think that you have to acknowledge moments, and I will. But there's work to be done. So once, what I'm saying, the love, the clap, and then we get the 3 points, then afterwards, look, I'll take him, whatever needs to be taken, but there is a job still to be done.
And really interesting that you talk about Wembley and what a fantastic fitting end that would be. And I think one of the memories that we all have as Wycombe Wanderers fans is your face just after the League One playoff final, which we, just what a day. Yeah,
listen, anybody that knows me, I get caught up in the moment a hell of a time, and what we done and what we achieved there, and coming off the back of what the world went through. So to be able to achieve something that we was written off for was beautiful. And of course, because we didn't have the fans there, it was a moment where we actually took it in as individuals. There was no distractions. It was everyone to a person. We looked into each other's eyes and we took it in. So listen, and I pray this, what I'm saying, there would be no better way, no fairy tale way to be able to finish it at Wembley. With a promotion, I would love that. Forget about me. It's something that we set out at the beginning of the season to be able to do, and to be able to leave this club with a promotion would be a beautiful thing. But one step at a time, we'll take care of Saturday first.
Chief Operating Officer Pete Couhig was also up at the training ground today, and I spoke to him and asked him for his thoughts on Adebayo Akinfenwa.
One of the nicest guys I've ever met. Really, he was the first player I met when I was here. Gave me a big old hug. He is one of the most special players ever. I've always loved a unique player that does something differently than everybody else. And there's only one Adebayo Akinfenwa. He is the strongest guy in the game, which when he began his career, I don't even know if FIFA was out yet. But once FIFA came out and he got loaded up into that game as the strongest player in the game, it gave him a huge platform, which, considering the type of person that Bayo is, was well-deserved, and he certainly used it in a very positive sense, both on and off the field. On the field, you can't argue. Hundreds of goals over 20 years in up and down the football league. Everywhere he's gone, he's been questioned. Everywhere he's gone, he's produced. He's had an unbelievable career. Feel very fortunate to work at the club where he's finishing up.
I've already said this to him, but when he came to this club, he was a legend, but actually he's now a Wycombe Wanderers legend.
Yeah, there is no doubt. With a club that's been around 140 years, there's names that everybody knows, that we'll know for all time. Akinfenwa is absolutely way up there in the history of Wycombe Wanderers. So we're going to miss him next year, but he'll always be around. He's retiring as a Wycombe Wanderer. He'll be a Wycombe Wanderer forever.
What does he bring as well to the Wycombe Wanderers worldwide phenomenon that you guys are trying to build?
Well, he's truly worldwide. Not too many players in Europe or England make a mid-season trip to the Super Bowl to cover it for Sky. Not many English football players could actually play American football, and I'm damn certain Bayo would have either made an excellent fullback, maybe a blocking tight end. Early in his career, he might have been able to handle defensive end. He is worldwide Wycombe. There's thousands and thousands of people around the world that would never have heard of Wycombe Wanderers without Adebayo Akinfenwa. And so he is going to be very tough to replace on that front. But, he's helped us build a worldwide fan base, and people love this club for a lot of different reasons. Bayo's one of them, and a key one. And I'm sure, as time goes on, there will always be that link between Bayo and us.
I also spoke to Head of Media Matt Cecil and asked him what his reaction was when he first heard that Wycombe was signing Adebayo Akinfenwa.
The gaffer and Bayo know this, so I'm not going to backtrack on it, but my first thought was, he's not very Wycombe, and I really feared the kind of pantomime and everything that might come with someone of his stature. Wycombe Wanderers weren't used to global superstars playing for them, and we had a history of signing relatively low-key players. So I remember Gareth ringing me on the Wednesday to say, Matt, we're signing Akinfenwa, what do you think? Of course I told him it was a wonderful move, but privately at the time I wasn't sure he was going to be right for Wycombe Wanderers. He had an amazing unveiling, I remember, at Adams Park. It was the day we unveiled the kit. We smuggled him into Adams Park. I remember I put him in a side room and said, wait a couple of hours, you're going to be brought out on stage, do you need anything? And he said, no, nothing important, just get me a hot chocolate. I spent the next half an hour frantically scouring every cupboard for a hot chocolate. I don't think we sold any. I sent someone down the road to buy some. We were dealing with a major talent and we wanted to impress him on day one. He got his hot chocolate. He got paraded on stage. The social media coverage that day just showed what an impact he was going to have off the pitch. He was massive. Everyone was talking about him. There was a lot of hype about which club he was going to go to. It was Wycombe Wanderers. 2 days later, we're in France at a pre-season friendly. Somebody absolutely crunched Luke O'Nien with a tackle, and through the mist came Bayo, picking up this French lad, throwing him, no joke, 20 metres across the pitch to say, you don't do that to my teammate. Bayo was sent off. That moment itself then went viral because nobody could believe Akinfenwa gets sent off in a pre-season friendly. But that laid down a marker. He was here to be a team player, to protect his teammates when they were up against it. And from that day forward, he and I have had a wonderful relationship. I'm so pleased to have worked with him. because of the person he is. And of course, for my job in the media, it's really helped put us on the map, and it's been a huge boost to Wycombe Wanderers and its global fan base. But just as one man working with a colleague, he's been an absolute inspiration and someone I was so pleased just to be on the pitch with at Wembley that time, and just kind of reflecting on what this club had achieved in the 5 years that he'd been here. And we can't wait to give him the send-off that he deserves, but of course we'll miss him when he's gone.
It was very nice of Will Smith and Chris Rock to recreate that moment from the Wycombe Wanderers Le Havre friendly at the Oscars.
Still to come on the Wycombe Wanderers show, we'll get the thoughts of manager Gareth Ainsworth as well.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
Still to come on this week's episode of the Wycombe Wanderers show, we'll get the thoughts of two members of Space Elevator. A fantastic band who you may not realise have quite a connection to Wycombe Wanderers, and quite a few links as well. That's to come, as I say. Plus we'll also hear from the manager Gareth Ainsworth. But if you're a regular listener to the show, you'll know, with big thanks to the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association, we often get to feature stars of the club from the 50s right up to the noughties, and we're on to the 63rd, I'm told. I'm very pleased to say that JDT John Taylor joins us this evening. Hello, sir.
Good evening, Colin. Nice to hear you, and lovely interviews regarding Bayo.
No, it's really fantastic, and a great story, and obviously from the sort of servants of the club that you know, someone who really stands out as well in the club's history.
Well, the thing is about Bayo that I had the pleasure, if it was called that, of doing the very first interview after he'd been introduced by Matt at the club unveiling. I did him in the first match that he played, and can you believe it? There were boos, because people, like Matt said, quite rightly, thought it was just a gimmick. And I think a lot of us wondered, what was going to happen. And crikey, what a difference 6 years later, as you say. We've got some fantastic ex-players, players who've made history, who we're going to talk about in a short while. But Bayo definitely is up there. And I think somebody said at the start of the programme, will I be there asking him is he going to be a member of the ex-players? I've already done that. And his answer to that was, which of the 15 clubs that I've played for should I become an ex-player of? I didn't want to argue with him, obviously, but the difference is, of course, that he played for most of these clubs for very short times. For Wycombe, he's played for 6 seasons, and 200 and odd appearances, 50 goals. I think that puts him in a very, very special place.
It really is fantastic to hear some of the stories of many of the ex-players that we've been privileged enough to speak to on this show. And Andy Harmon is another who we were due to speak to this week, but he's a very busy man, it appears, and just on his way back from Dubai. So we'll be hearing from him next week. And he, of course, is someone who will be known to fans, obviously, as being a player, but also someone who could have taken over the club.
Yeah, I think Andy didn't want to be overshadowed by Bayo and decided to put off his appearance for a week. But Andy is actually coming to the game on Saturday with a box load of ex-Wycombe players from his generation, the 1980s. People like Mark West, Anton Verkafs, Mark Hill, Jimmy Jacobs, Dave Burgess, Jim Melvin, Bob Dell. Most of those, I'd just like to add, have been interviewed by you, along with the 80s manager Alan Gain. So they're all coming along to add their support to Bayo, but also, of course, to do a final farewell to Gary Lester, who played with all of those players and was under manager Alan Gain, as a final farewell to Gary, who died just before Christmas.
It's fantastic to be able to speak to so many of those players and from that era as well. Many people, of course, who listen to the show will have watched the club during that time, and really interesting that I guess hopefully you'll get the chance to meet the Couhigs as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it'll be very interesting for Andy Harmon coming back, because as a lot of fans will know, he was the man who was going to take over the club just before the Couhigs came in. And it got to a very advanced stage, and he had quite a bit of support. But I think the club and the trust found that the Couhigs bid was going to be perhaps more viable, and I think that they have not been wrong in that sense. But I think Andy's got the love of the club at heart as well, and I don't think he would like to be felt that he was against the Couhigs. He was trying at that particular time to help them and to help the trust, which was literally on its last legs. But I'm no doubt that he'll shake the hand of Pete on Saturday because he's helped that's Andy's old club do more than just survive.
Absolutely. And another ex-player who we've been fortunate enough to speak to, Dick Tumner, who I understand is your oldest member, and you'll be celebrating his contribution as well on Saturday.
Well, it's interesting that it's his 93rd birthday in just a couple of weeks' time. But just this afternoon, I had an email from Peter Lerner, who was on the Trust Committee, who tells me that he was in a Star and Garter home in Wycombe this afternoon and was talking to a guy called Johnny Brooks. Now, I looked up the record in between then, and Johnny Brooks actually played in 1945 for Wycombe, which is 7 years before Dick Tumner. So I wonder whether that makes him even older. I've asked Peter to investigate, but we could have almost a centenarian. And of course, I've obviously got the membership cards out and the old boys tie. We hope we might have another one added to our list.
Oh, it'd be great to have more signings, especially the more experienced ex-players as well.
I think experienced is quite the word. Well, of course, ex-players also involved, as you know, over the weekend, going back to the Bayo situation. Tony Horseman has been asked to do the presentation to Bayo before the game, and the club cleverly said, look, and Gareth said they didn't want that the last game of the season because it could be very, very special, everything hanging on that. It could be a Wembley visit. He didn't want any distractions before that kick-off. Instead of that, he's got them for this game, and Tony Horseman was our choice to hand over the ex-players plaque to Bayo. And when you think about it, how appropriate is that? I mean, Bayo's played 6 seasons and scored 50 goals for Wycombe Wanderers. He's the top EFL scorer. Tony Horseman, now I'm going to say this very slowly, he made 939 appearances and he scored 558 goals.
Wow.
How about that?
No, that's an incredible record, and you can't really imagine that being bettered.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? Well, Tony himself, he turns 81 in May. He scored his goals obviously in non-league football. Akinfenwa, the leading man in the proper pro era. So it's going to be quite a half an hour before that match. And the other one, of course, it's coming back in a couple of weeks' time, and in fact is often around Adams Park. I nearly said Lokes Park there.
He's probably around there as well.
Yeah, well, certainly his ghost is John Maskell, and he's going to be the man picked to honour Matt Bloomfield. And again, there's a great synergy here between the two. John Maskell made 753 appearances in goal. That was across 16 seasons. Matt made 558 appearances, but his across from 2003, that's in 19 years. And again, you just don't get those kind of figures today, do you? I mean, Matt and Mask are just two of a breed.
No, definitely. You hear of so many players who move on quite quickly after, not spending too much time at a club and not really sort of, achieving too much in the way of perhaps goals or appearances. A brilliant record for them both. And obviously also Tony Horseman as well. I mean, younger players might see Bodger going around, the mascot of a game at Adams Park and perhaps not even realise that Tony Horseman is Bodger.
Exactly that. Musk, of course, is our ex-players president, and Hutch, he still does a tremendous amount of work for the Ex-Players Association. I don't know whether you know that we had our quiz last week. It just so happened that the team from John Maskell's village, he lives in Oxfordshire, actually won it. Now, there are suspicions here because John Maskell is the man who sets the questions. I don't want to cast any aspersions, but, questions have been asked. But what's nice is that we're back in action. We've got two guys actually on the field in the next couple of weeks. We've had our quiz, which over 100 people, despite all the COVID stuff, attended last weekend, and we've got our bowls and golf tournaments coming up in June and July. And then we come back at long last with our annual dinner, which, as you know, was postponed the last couple of years. And we're holding that just a bit earlier in November this year because the World Cup kicks off. And I'm sure everybody wants to sit down and watch about 4 games a day and not come to necessarily to a dinner at Adams Park, but they will come a week earlier.
Well, we've spoken to so many of the ex-players who really, really value these opportunities to come together with all sorts of generations of former stars of the club as well.
Well, I think it's going to be more and more difficult, to be absolutely honest with you, to continue an association like ours in the years to come because, as you rightly say, players, are here for a couple of seasons and move on, and by the end of their career they've got, like Bayo, they've got 15 clubs. I mean, you had on last week Scott McLeish, 16 clubs. You had Darren Curry, who's got over a dozen clubs. And yet they are actually members. But now in the full professional era, it's going to be a lot more difficult for our successors. But we've enjoyed bringing people together. And, sometimes, unfortunately, I have to bring bad news. I ring Matt up and he says, oh, no, the Obit King's on again. And unfortunately, as you know, over the last 2 years, we've lost about 23 members. And the latest one of that, Dave Thomas, we have his funeral on Monday. And Dave, again, was another slightly different to the current players in that he was a local person. He played in junior school with Tony Horseman. He played in about 4 different teams, the 2 of them together. And I've got a special affection for Dave Thomas because I was just starting off my journalistic career on the local newspaper, and Dave Thomas was the wing half, as they were, or midfielders today, in the first team that I covered. And he was a great local hero because that's what the Wycombe fans loved in those days. In fact, just going back to when I first covered them, that was in 1960. I used to get on the team coach with the team to travel with the team to report on them, and the furthest we ever picked up a player was Gerrards Cross, and we used to think of Len Worley and John Beck as almost being foreigners. It's strange how things change, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. But it's been such a fantastic opportunity to be able to share the stories of, as we say, players from who played in the 50s right up to more recently, as you mentioned, people like Scott McLeish and all sorts in between.
Well, that's what we've tried to do. And I mean, this programme has been absolutely spectacular for that, because it's helped us bring quite a lot of players who've been on the periphery. We chat to them again and say, look, you're going to come on and have a word, 5 minutes on the programme just to talk about your experiences. And suddenly it's rekindled, their enthusiasm for Wycombe Wanderers. And we've had these players now who hadn't perhaps turned up for some years, coming back and saying, kind of a ticket for the Wanderers box. And, we've got a full house on Saturday. In fact, we've got more than a full house. So if anybody's got a couple of spare tickets, let us know. But that's 2 boxes on Saturday made up of ex-Wycombe Wanderers players. I don't think you're going to find that at many clubs.
No, definitely, and it's so important for fans of all ages to be able to hear the stories of so many different generations of former stars as well.
I think the point you've hit on with most of them is that they played for numerous clubs, but somehow, and I don't know what it was and what it is, because there's different managers involved. You can understand the enthusiasm playing under Gareth Ainsworth. You can understand in former years with Martin O'Neill and with Brian Lee, and in the 50s with Sid Can. But there's been, 20-odd managers. But people who've played under all of those have this same kind of respect for the club, which is quite phenomenal.
Well, it's been a real pleasure to liaise with both yourself and Alan, of course, to set up these interviews, and we look forward to doing more for the remainder of the season. Thank you so much, Steve, for your time.
Lovely to talk to you, Colin. Thanks again. Bye.
Likewise, JDT from the Wycombe Wanderers Ex-Players Association speaking to us here at Wycombe Sound.
Online, on Radio Player, and on 106.6 FM. This is Wycombe Sound.
Still to come on the Wycombe Wanderers show, we will be hearing from the Chairboys boss, Gareth Ainsworth, of course, getting his thoughts on Adebayo Akinfenwa, and also hearing what he's thinking ahead of the game against Doncaster on Saturday.
But first, I thought it'd be a real treat to bring a not just Gareth angle of rock and roll element to the show.
I'm looking forward to this, as we are the Rock and Roll Football Club. Oh, by the way, can I also say hello to all the people who listen on the Gas Room web forum, and they listened back to my interview with Rob Couhig, and apparently I sound really like Richard Osman. Micra and Leeds Blue saying, I couldn't get the picture out of my head that it was Richard Osman interviewing Rob. Such was the similarity of voice to my ears.
There you go.
Yes.
Richard Osman in the style of Louis Theroux.
I have my book is currently out, and I do a couple of quiz shows as well, apparently.
You could be a Richard Osman tribute act.
I could. Yes, that's true. Yes.
You'd have to change the name slightly. You could have to be called Richard Osmond or something, couldn't you?
Next week at the Wycombe Swan, come and see my tribute to Richard Osman.
Yeah, so on mid-mornings, there's a brilliant crossover here. On mid-mornings yesterday, we spoke to Space Elevator, who are a band who've just got out their 3rd album.
Good name.
I know. And their new single, it's a double A-side called Stevie Nicks' Smile, is the single of the week on Drive Time as well. So we spoke to Brian yesterday, who's the drummer, and also Dave Young, who's the lead guitarist. And Brian is a big Wycombe Wanderers fan, so I asked him...
I thought this was going to come back towards a Wycombe Wanderers direction, and there it is.
So I asked him whether he thought Wycombe Wanderers would make the playoffs.
In Ainsworth we trust is the answer. I mean... I don't know the answer to that one. What I can absolutely categorically tell you is what a fantastic club, what a fantastic few years with Couhig and Ainsworth, and how proud should Wycombe be of just having a club with such incredible values, which are lived through everything that they do. With Ainsworth and Couhig, absolutely right the way through the club, and playoffs or not, really super proud of them. I really hope they do. It will extend the season and keep the interest going, which is always lovely. And then the chance of being back in the Championship in a stronger position, well, that would be wonderful, wouldn't it? It would be wonderful. But they've got a fantastic chance of doing it. And I'm just super proud of the team and Ainsworth and Couhig and the whole thing. So, to be able to love your club because they've got all of the right values is just such a bonus as a football fan.
Actually, just on the Wycombe thing, piece of trivia here, I was at the Wycombe Middlesbrough game in the 5th round of the FA Cup in January 1976. So there you go. And I was at the playoff final when they beat, was it Preston North End?
That's right,
yeah. The day Kurt Cobain died. So I always remember about that. 1994, something like that. Dare I say I scored 2 goals? One of them was a header in a cup final. It was under 16 game at Lokes Park. Yes, I'll say it.
He's just showing off now. That was David Young, who's played at Lokes Park. Not many of us can say that.
Not at all. But I really, really like the tribute to both Gareth and to the Couhig family.
Brian spoke brilliantly. You can imagine,
really brilliant.
All top fans thinking in that way about the club.
Yes, and I think you just have to look again. Actually, at events that have happened this week, just down the road at Stainstown. And if you haven't, if you're not aware of the events at Stainstown, we'll do a Google search for Stainstown because it's fascinating, if terrible, reading, and just about how far a club can go in such a short space of time. And we're so lucky to have the people, the custodians that we currently have of our club in charge.
And Brian talked about the values as well, which Gareth will speak about in a few minutes' time as well. And brilliant chatting to JDT as well, because that's something that seems to span the ages, really. Yeah,
and again, I think JDT, it was a really interesting point about how he could understand that players of a certain age who'd played under a certain manager would be very warm towards the club. But actually, it's the fact that there are so many players, regardless of whether they played under some of what you might call are maybe more iffy managerial appointments, but they're still very, very keen on actually, on being part of the Ex-Players Association, on being associated with the club, and that's lovely. There is something special that clearly was born at Lokes Park and continues now at Adams Park.
No, definitely, it's like sort of carrying on the torch.
Yes, very much so.
Even under iffy managers.
Yes.
And as you say, we're so lucky to have Gareth for the time that we have, and just the way he kind of speaks and represents, his sort of team.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were speaking off air earlier on about, when you think about it and you think of how well Gareth has done, it is incredible that actually we've managed to keep hold of him. And particularly as well when you think of some of the other clubs and some of the clubs locally that he has links with, and the number of times that they've changed manager, and you might have thought, he's probably going to go down the 840, and he hasn't. We are very, very lucky, and particularly when we have a bad run, can we stop the people then saying things like, I think he's taken us as far as he can possibly take us? Because no, have you not been paying attention over the past 10 years? Look back to Torquay and that afternoon and the couple of games that preceded it. Remember Bristol, don't remember Torquay, remember Bristol Rovers at home when we lost, and all the Bristol Rovers fans celebrated, and some of them were even on the pitch celebrating the fact that they thought that actually they'd survived and they'd relegated Wycombe Wanderers, and then remember what happened and the fact that actually we survived, before going on and questioning whether or not Gareth Ainsworth should still be manager of Wycombe Wanderers, because he definitely, as long as he wants the job, he should be allowed to keep it.
Very good point from Richard Osman there. If you just tuned in, you've missed that reference. Listen back to the earlier part of the show, you'll get it there.
You can get tickets to my show at the Old Town Hall sometime next week.
Which currently doesn't exist, by the way. In case we get sued, or they all turn up and they go, "Where's Richard Osman?" No, it's not. None of that.
Not really. No.
We have caught up with Gareth Ainsworth though a little earlier on today, and of course, no game on Saturday, and not played since Portsmouth. So here he is telling us what he's been up to.
We were in actually. We had the game against Ascot on the Tuesday, so we took that seriously, and great for Ascot. I'll keep that sort of fairy tale competition alive. That was good. We didn't want to disrespect the competition, although we had some trialists in the team. It taught me a lot about some of our younger players as well, which was great, and good minutes for Jack and Sully, which was needed. And then we had some time off. We have these moments in the season where you've got to be able to mentally and physically reset the boys. So the boys took 4 days, the Saturday, Sunday and the Thursday, Friday before, and that was great. It sort of brought them back in Monday this week, and getting them back up to speed again. But I think you can see the mental and physical reset, which is great, and hopefully we've got plenty of energy, and treated a few injuries while we were off as well. We got some injuries back, and myself, I was in a couple of days because I want to try and keep on top of things here. A lot of conversations with Rob and Pete. We're forward planning, which is good. obviously and had an appearance on Sky Sports, which was great. And then Saturday night I went to the Albert Hall to watch Liam Gallagher. So yeah, it was quite a mixed bag there, and it was a nice break for me as much as anyone. But it was much needed for the players, and hopefully we'll see the benefit of that going into these last 7 games now.
Fantastic. I was going to say, do you find that the break has come at a good time? Have the players benefited from it, or would you prefer to sort of carry on it and keep that momentum that you had?
No, we have for the last 5 or 6 seasons we've actually manufactured our own break. You know, we do this every year, and I think it's difficult sometimes for managers because they feel like they have to be in all the time. The players have to be in all the time, and I believe there can be burnout with those situations. I think you've got to try and get these breaks away from the place, like any job. You know, the thing is about football is you can't book a week off here and there. You know, when you're feeling like you need a week off, you can never do that because the season's scheduled in. So we try and almost manufacture breaks during the season at times. Not only once, really, towards February, March time. We always try. Dave Wakes has done some real good studies on this, and we feel that we finished seasons really strong. I mean, Championship, we finished really strong last year. Obviously, we came back for the playoffs in a fantastic place, and the season we survived in League One, and the season we got promoted, both strong finishes, you know, and we've done this manufactured break. We're just glad this year it's sort of manufactured itself with the international weekend. So we're hoping to benefit from, like I say, all the physical and mental, just a bit of a reset, bit of a, some headspace time for the boys. We gave them little programs to do, but we really monitor well with where the boys are physically, and like I say, the mental side of things is really important as well. So no, all good, and I suppose the proof will be in the pudding now in the next 7 games. You know, we've got to win definitely over half of them, and we'll see where that takes us.
So do you have a different approach to the last game of the last month of the season? Because obviously the first month is very different, I imagine, and then you have a kind of midpoint of the season, but then it does feel like everything's sort of been building to this, really.
Yeah, what we've done is we've given ourselves a chance. There's probably 9 teams now that have given themselves a chance of the playoffs, and at the start there was 24 teams. Now there's 9, so we've whittled it right down to almost a third of those teams, and we're in that batch. And I think I don't need to spell it out to the players. They're all very clever. They're all intelligent football people. They know what they need to do and what's at hand. So there's no different approach. I'm quite seasoned now with these precious situations coming to the end of the season. I was speaking to Blooms the other day. I think there's only been 1 season in my whole managerial career where there's been nothing to play for on the last game, and or 2 maybe if you count the Stevenage at home, but still we wanted to win that because of to put on a good show for the fans. But it's been crazy. It really has been a crazy season, crazy managerial career. The end of the season always is exciting. I think once we've been mid-table mediocrity, and I don't want that to happen. So we want to be pushing right to the end, and hopefully we will be.
And obviously, I think you said before that it really sort of suits the team to be just outside the playoffs and to be chasing and have that kind of goal, if you like.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'd love to be 10 points embedded in the playoffs, but chasing is not a bad place to be. I firmly believe we'll get back in these playoffs, but it will be about then staying hold of that position. And I think the next 3 games are very winnable games, and we've got to get stuck into them before we start playing some of the teams in and around us. And Plymouth and Sheffield Wednesday obviously will be big games for us. But at the moment, it's all about Doncaster, one step at a time. And I know it's cliche time, but that's how I manage. That's how we do things. I'll have a sneaky look at Cambridge with Josh Hart. And that sort of, I compartmentalise that in my head and put that to one side. But it will be all about Doncaster and what we're going to do Saturday and how we're going to approach this game, because this is a tight table. Doncaster have beat Sunderland. They've beat MK Dons. They're not an outfit that looking second bottom thinking that they're dead and buried. Absolutely no chance. I know they'll be fighting. So we've got to be on it on Saturday to start. Hopefully, what will be a good run of points coming in.
And obviously Saturday as well, dedicated to someone who is probably difficult to sum up the contribution he's made to the club.
What can you say about Adebayo Akinfenwa that he doesn't show on the pitch? He's an incredible guy, and I mean that. I think football has brought us together, but life will keep us together, not football. It's one of those situations where I've met somebody that will be in my life forever. I think, he's an unbelievable guy, and I would not have been able to do what I've been able to do without Adebayo Akinfenwa. There's 2 or 3 of them, the players that they know who they are, that have been there right through, and Bayo's one of them. The way he's transformed the dressing room over the years, and the way he's performed. I think people thought he was dead and buried after the Wimbledon playoff final, and when he was released by Wimbledon, and we took him, and I think I remember people saying it's just a show, it's a show pony or a publicity stunt, the Wycombe Wanderers. How glad I am to say that we have our greatest ever EFL goal scorer playing on Saturday, or in the squad on Saturday, ready to take all the plaudits, and has proved every single person wrong. I think the Wycombe years, for me, have been the best of his career, and that's really proud for us to say that. But it goes so much more beyond football. Unless you've been in the offices with me and Bayo with our one-on-one chats, or unless you've seen that the charisma that walks in with this guy, you'll never understand. But that's Akinfenwa, and he deserves every clap and every cheer he gets from now on. He's been fantastic for this football club, and cannot underestimate what he's done.
I was going to say, there must be so much that the fans don't see as well as influence in the dressing room, and just the fact that away supporters want to have their pictures taken with him as well. There can't be too many players who have that influence.
No, he's incredible. He really is, and he is the most humble guy. People talk about our values. Humility is probably my number one. It really is, and Bayo has it in droves, absolute droves. And like you say, when he goes away, even people who've given him stick, as long as it's good-humoured stick and a little bit of tongue-in-cheek stuff, then Bayo will go over to them, engage them, smile at them, get them on side, sign their autographs, with their pictures. He's one of these people that you don't know what he's like until you actually know him. And when he walks in the room, you've probably got this perceived idea about him. You're totally wrong, because he's one of the most gentle, understanding, able to listen human beings ever. He really is, and I think that people want to see what they want to see in people sometimes. But getting to know Bayo has been an absolute privilege for me, and Wycombe Wanderers have been very lucky to have him.
He'll certainly leave a big hole in the dressing room. Hopefully not physically.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with Gareth about the amount of time that he then spends with the fans. And I think the real mark of the man actually came after that MK Dons game. If you remember that MK Dons game, it was the horrible game, and it was the game where there was all of the chanting, and of course it was a game where we lost as well. And Bayo was the main target for the chanting, and really, it was a rough afternoon, and he could have been completely forgiven for thinking at the end, at full time, I just want to go down the tunnel, and but he didn't, and he spent about an hour apparently going round and having selfies with fans, and you just think, what an absolutely fantastic guy. And as you say, he's going to be hugely missed for so many reasons. On the pitch, obviously, because he's a fantastic footballer. When it comes down to it, what actually we signed him to do, he's brilliant at. But also, he's going to be hugely missed as well off the pitch, partly as an ambassador for our club, and also just how fantastic he actually is at being a cheerleader for our team, and seeing him there with the coaching staff and encouraging the players when he's not actually playing. He's brilliant at all of that.
And I swear, I don't think you can think of any other players really who are such a fan favourite, a teammate's favourite, other players' favourite, their own manager as well. So he's found a friend for life there.
Definitely, and I mean that's what I was really alluding to when I said to him earlier on. When you came to this club, you were a legend already. Kids in playgrounds knew who he was, even though he was a lower league English footballer. He was known across the world, but actually, in the time that he's been here, he's completely cemented himself with the Chairboys faithful, and will be forever a Wycombe Wanderers legend.
And you can't obviously overstate that being the club's leading EFL goal scorer as well.
Exactly that, and that's what I mean about the football a bit as well. Let's not forget, for all of the tributes, how brilliant he's been on the pitch, and some of the, particularly like late goals that he scored, and just, I was lucky enough last season to be at the Bristol City game, the penultimate home game of the Championship season, and of course he hadn't scored a goal in the Championship, and then we got that penalty in added time. The game was 1-1. And Joe Jacobson let Bayo take the penalty, and of course Bayo scored, so he has now scored in every division that he has ever played in, and we won the game 2-1.
And he scored last time we played Doncaster as well, so that'd be a bit special on Saturday.
It's hopefully all of the stars are aligning for a fantastic day out on Saturday. And if you haven't got a ticket, well, do get down to Adams Park, because it's going to be a brilliant afternoon.
Big thank you to everyone who's taken part in this week's show. Have a good week, and we'll be back next week.